Hello, everyone. I'm Bruno Albuquerque. This is my partner, my honorable partner, Walter. We're here from ELT in Brazil. Today, on lesson 6 out of 7, it was actually planned to be 6 lessons, but again, an extra lesson here. We'll be talking about writing. So, do we use writing? Are we using writing class to practice vocabulary and grammar, or do we use writing in class to actually develop writing skills? This is one of the key questions we're going to answer today. E roda a vinheta, até já. Ah, curte aqui, subscribe, etc. See
Yeah,
you.
don't forget. Okay, well, we're back. Bruno, today's lesson is fun. This is going to be a super lesson, all right? And super fun. I really like this topic. I really like teaching writing. Fun fact, I think it's my favorite skill when it comes to teaching. I have a lot of fun when I do this, and I guess it's because I like to write when I was in school, and I don't mean English school. I mean regular school. Did you like that?
I hated writing.
You did.
Yes, writing was my least favorite skill.
Hmm.
uh, because it's a lot of work, it takes time, it's a lot of effort. If you publish, there's no way you can defend yourself from critique from the readers, and it has been for quite some time my weakest skill in English. And this is why I decided to have a blog, so that I could practice writing and then forget this, drop this stigma on the skill. But today is one of the skills that I like the most. So funny thing, right?
That is super interesting. I mean, uh, I think that one of the things that helps students or teachers improve their writing skills is having, like, if they have no motivation to write, like, you gotta have some sort of motivation. So if you, for example, if you were planning to become like to publish some of your materials, and then you really have to write things, that will help you get better, right? And there begs the question, you have to motivate the students to want to write something. And how do you do that? And then I'm gonna start sharing, and you see my screen there. Tell me if can you see it? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So and then we go and we move on to the importance of writing in the history of teaching, right? In the beginning, in the very beginning, in the grammar translation method. By the way, we like if you go back 500
I love
years.
the saying, in the beginning, there was light.
Yes. Well,
Um,
mind you that people started studying languages, but it wasn't English. It was what do you call
Latin.
them? The Well, it's a term to refer to Greek and Latin, right? So people started studying those languages, and for that they had this this approach to teaching, which was called monastery learning, which then changed and then changed again up until we got to grammar translation. That's how languages were learned for a long time. During the grammar translation period, we can say, and this is a little bit of a history there. During the grammar translation period, they wouldn't see writing as a skill because students wouldn't practice any conventions of writing. They were, oh, you're gonna write an essay. Oh, you're gonna write a letter. There wasn't anything like that. Writing was mainly seen as intellectual exercise and was used to practice the grammatical or vocabulary that the student, actually grammar, not vocabulary, because there wasn't any focus on vocabulary, but it was used to practice grammar, right? So, oh yeah, you learned the third conditional. So you're going to have to write 3 sentences using the third conditional. That's what you use the writing for, right? And yes, there was a lot of focus on accuracy, but from a grammatical point of view, not as a skill point of view, right? You probably would focus on punctuation. I'm not certain on that, but you would focus on the grammar, not on the skill. Things to add, Bruno?
No, that's it.
Nope. Yeah. And then in 1980, there was something called the movement, when teachers, they didn't call it a method, but they just like, okay, we don't like this, we want to do it in a different way. And that thing started to be called came to be called the direct method. And in the direct method, it was clear that, okay, we want the students to speak, so we're going to focus on speaking. And because of that, they have to focus on pronunciation. So pronunciation gained a lot of importance during this period. And that's why speaking was very important. And the skill of speaking was just, it came in the first place. And here is something that is very important. During the direct method, writing came in the last place. It wasn't important compared to the other skills. So the order would be listening, speaking, reading, and then writing, right? And something else is that the same thing happened to the approaches that followed the direct method. If you were familiar with them: oral approach, situational language teaching, audiolingualism, which was the first one based on any science, on any theory of learning, which I don't really like much. Personal notes there.
And still, I would say that this grading that you brought, perhaps I would change speaking and listening to talk about teaching English today, right? So we'll have speaking, listening, reading, writing. I think it's still in general classrooms, like in the majority of English classrooms, I think this would be the importance that teachers give
Kind of
to
a
the
role
skills.
model, a bad
Yeah,
role model.
I think it's still if you're watching us here, write in the comments below if your order of priority. I think it's very difficult for us to have like equal priority.
Being
If
realistic, yeah.
everything is a priority, nothing is a priority, right? But I
Mhm.
think this is the way it's still seen today, right? Writing as the last activity in the unit, right?
If
And then you do that activity, and then, okay, we're done, right?
I mean, if you go to like put yourself in the shoes of a student. Students want to speak, right? So it is a very common thing, an everyday thing that happens, that if somebody's looking for an English school, they go to a school and they talk to the secretary, and the secretary will tell them, no, but here they will learn to speak. Speaking is the most important thing. And is that just a good thing? Like, do you agree to that? Leave us a comment, tell us about it. Do you think that speaking should be always said to be it should be considered the most important thing? Is it possible that somebody's just gonna learn how to speak and not develop the other skills, right? If you
Very
think
good
about it,
question.
like if you look at materials that students have at regular schools, like these materials that you have for regular schools for language lessons, aren't they just focused on reading? Then reading is the one that matters the most for tests. I mean vestibular, I mean Enem, right? Is it possible that are those students really just learning how to read? Are they really learning how to read in English? So is it possible to break things like that? It's a complicated thing. I would like to know your view on that. Please share with us.
We need a
Um,
course on integrating skills.
absolutely. That is a tremendous idea.
Yeah.
Well,
All right. What about teaching the thing?
yeah. And now we hit the communicative approach. our God.
Jesus.
Jesus Christ, the communicative approach. Yes, bro.
Yeah.
For most teachers out there, I think that if you ask teachers that work in many different language centers, and it was like, what approach do you use? And then they will say it is the communicative approach. We can talk about that in a different lesson, but it was during the communicative approach in the end at the end of the 70s that writing began to gain importance again, and this time it was seen as a real skill that needed to be improved. Just
Mhm.
like the other lessons that a student will have, writing would still be seen as a product. What I mean with that is that okay, you're gonna learn how to write an essay. So in the end of this lesson, you have to write an essay. So it is the product, the end of the lesson, that matters. We talked about lesson
Mhm.
objectives in this course, this very course. Go back, click on the lesson on lesson objectives, and you will see a little bit of types of objectives. But the thing is, product oriented lesson objectives for product oriented lessons, in this case writing.
Mhm.
uh, it's also called model text approach or product approach, if you prefer. And the principle is very simple. The learner will be first exposed to a model of the genre that you want them to write about, to follow, and before they write anything. And the thing is, I love this approach. I think that Bruno is going to talk about the next one, which is, in my opinion, is far better. But this is just so useful, and I think we owe a lot to this method, because it was here that we started to follow conventions of writing and teaching those conventions of writing. Do you know what they are? When I
Mhm.
say conventions of writing, I say, what is it that make, when you're correcting a writing, and then what you're correcting it based on, like probably this is an essay. The first thing is the task achievement. Does it look like an essay? Does it have 4 to 5 paragraphs? Does it have a clear introduction? Maybe if it's C2, is it using something like an inversion in the first paragraph, like
Mhm.
many like to teach? And then it is presenting an idea, and then contrasting the idea, and then moving on to a final and clear conclusion. And does it have a title? Does it not have a title? Basically, is the student following the conventions of the genre? So the text actually looks what it's supposed to look like. And the same
Mhm.
thing will happen to a review, to a letter. Oh, yours faithfully, that kind of thing. That needs to be there because it's a letter. It's a convention of writing. So we do owe a lot
Mhm.
to that. This would be the staging of a lesson in this approach. So students would read a text, you show them a text, and the books have those, usually unit D or something like that. And Bruno,
Right, the
interesting
last
because
one
writing is the
before the
last one,
project.
even in the
Before the
books.
project.
Yes, but I do think that it's done that way because there is a construction, there is a scaffold to get to the writing, which is clearly productive.
Mhm.
But I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, right? And well, they would read and answer something of you were not developing the skill of reading, so you just want them to focus on the text so that they have a clear purpose for reading that text. So that's why you have a gist question, and then you move on to a
Mhm.
presentation. And this is, to me, very important, that there is a clear presentation on genre focus. Have the students identify the type of text. Okay, so they read the text. Now you ask them, what kind of text was that? And if you already taught them the word genre, they actually know what it means. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that was a review. How do you know it's a review? Oh, because there is a clear recommendation, for example.
Mhm.
Because and then you can actually talk about other types of conventions, such as, what is the tone of that text? Is it formal, informal, neutral, unmarked, as some people call it? and then like okay, and then something more about genre focus, the paragraphing, the type of cohesive devices, connectors, linkers, conjunctions that are used in this type of text. So like, is it okay to use furthermore in an article or a review, for example? That's part of the
Mhm.
genre. And then finally, there could be, not necessarily, but there could be, and books will always have this one, which is language focus. So they will focus on vocabulary or predominant grammar tenses that are in that type of text. And then they move on, they practice, maybe they write one paragraph, and then they will write a final version, which
Mhm.
you take it home and you give them feedback on. And that will be the
Mhm.
product approach. Bruno, things to add to
Yeah.
this one?
It's very useful when teaching children, for example, the first steps of teaching children to write. So you give them a model, you have them look at the model as you were describing, and
Yes.
then they produce a text. And I think that's the focus, right? It's producing a text that is very similar to the model text, right? So sometimes you see in children's books, course books, gapped texts, and then the students will complete the text with information about themselves, for example.
Or
There's a
ordering
text, yeah,
paragraphs,
mhm,
also something that
yeah,
is a practice. Yes.
yeah. So it's very useful for teaching children these early stages of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite
Yeah.
useful.
I agree. I agree. And I
Mhm.
also think that it's also very useful for, mind you, that some people, they don't have any writing skills. It's so common that students, they are in high school and they
Mhm.
come to you and you ask them very simplistic, very simple questions about writing, and they spend so much time writing essays in discursive type in school, and they don't know very simple things.
Mhm.
I think it's just the model of teaching in Brazil, and I'm not sure how, like, to what extent people are asking questions about those.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
the school essay is one of the most common genres of writing, and in my opinion, is one of the least useful, right? You
I
only write
I have
school
to agree.
essays to be assessed by your teacher,
But
right?
again,
So
completely focused,
focused,
right?
yeah.
Like, you never focus on the process of writing, and that is why what Bruno's gonna say now, the one he's gonna talk about,
Mhm.
is so important.
Yeah.
Yep. Should I move on?
The yes,
Yep.
the next one, process writing, right? So process approach. We have this connection to genre approach because in product writing, what we're doing is focusing on the end product. We want students to produce a text similar to the model, right? We that there is this presentation of some conventions, but in the process approach, and then the focus of the process approach, as the name says, is on the process of writing. And the assumption here is that by teaching students how to use techniques that proficient writers use to write will help students develop their writing skills. So what we do is we focus on helping students with strategies to generate ideas. We're helping students with strategies to plan their texts. We're helping students with strategies to um, peer review, to edit, to revise their texts. And that we believe that by teaching these strategies and practicing these strategies, students will be better writers, right? There is an interesting piece of research that says that good writers, they spend much more time in the planning process than novice writers. So perhaps one of the strategies, one of the sub skills that we could focus on when teaching students how to write is on planning the text. Because once you generate ideas, you have a plan, drafting is much easier, right? You know what you're going to write about.
Mhm.
Yeah. So here we focus on the creativity and unpredictability of writing. The outcome is not preconceived, but when you're focusing on a genre and then you combine process and genre approach, you're going to use the genre analysis that Walter described a bit up there to have students identify the characteristics of the genre so that they can use these when planning and writing their texts. There is an acronym I like to
Mm.
remind students on how to analyze is, do you mind typing it?
Sure, sure.
It's C and then C clogas, CLOGAS. Yes. And then what we have here is uh, the the first C is the communicative purpose of the text. So what is this text trying to achieve? It's the first thing that you should find in a text, right? So the communicative purpose of the text. Then the second C is the content. What is the content of this text? What is the theme? What is it talking about? Uh, L is layout. So think about a news report, right? Or better yet, think about an interview, a magazine interview, for example, for Brasiso's magazine, right? You usually have the picture of the person who's being interviewed. You might have an introduction paragraph about the person, their bio, perhaps, and then you have the question, answer, the answer, right? And this is the layout of an interview for a magazine. Organization is how you're going to organize the content in this layout. So the content is, think about a cover letter now. So we have maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs, maybe a couple of bullet points. And then what are you going to write in the first paragraph? What are you going to write in the second? What are you going to include in the bullet points? Organization. G, you guessed it, it's grammar and vocabulary, right? So grammar and lexis. What is the grammar and what is the vocabulary that is common to this text? Think about recipe. Uh, in recipes, the words cup, teaspoon, ounces are very common, right? They're expected to be there. Words like chop, mix, add, stir, heat, cool, rest are expected words in this text. And in terms of grammar, you have the imperative, cut this, chop that, add this, add that, right? So it's very short sentences giving directions. For audience, who's going to read it? And then using this knowledge of the audience, you can more easily think about the style of your text. Is this going to be formal, informal, neutral, right? And then if you help students go through these items, and again, you don't necessarily use all of them for all genres and for all levels, right? So perhaps beginners, you would go with communicative purpose. Layout is very easy, it's very visible. And audience. Imagine if you use communicative purpose, layout, and audience for every writing class. Why are you writing this? What's going to look like on the page? And who are you writing this to? It's
There,
much more, yes.
I think that the first question that if you're gonna write a text, you gotta think about who's gonna read the text. The
Mhm,
audience already gives you the style,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Style, I mean, formal, informal, the tone of the
mhm,
text. So
mhm,
if you know the audience, like audience for me would be the first thing. But yes, because it's gonna dictate the others. But like all of like everything here is, I love this C Clogas. I never heard of
Uh-huh.
that. This is Bruno's thing. I'm definitely gonna use that. I'm definitely gonna use that. We have very similar teaching styles based on this, because like these are the things that I do in all of my writing lessons. I never teach a writing lesson and not talk about the audience, the style, right? The layout, things that the layout is so commonly undermined in lessons,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And
And
the
it's quite
style.
important, right? It's how you organize the information. It's the thing that when you look at a text, you can tell what it is, usually by the layout,
Yes.
right? So you know that this, what you see in your screen right now, is not uh, a fairy tale,
Yes. Shall we
just by
move
looking
on?
at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shall we move
Um,
on?
sure.
Sure. Yeah.
And then what we have here, we have this moment of generating ideas, but obviously, as Walter said about product writing, it's always a good idea to have a text for students to read and get the gist out of it, right? So uh, they know what's going on, and then you carry out this analysis, this genre analysis with students. I suggest transforming these into questions, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what's their layout? What does it look like, etc. And then
Where would you
yes,
include the genre analysis here
before generating ideas.
before
So we
generating
read the
ideas?
text. Yeah, we read the text for gist. We analyze it, and then we generate ideas, right? So we generate ideas through brainstorming, through picture sequences,
Interesting.
maps, role plays.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then these phase of generating ideas, this brainstorming, maybe with a mind map, what you're doing here is you're you're generating ideas and language that students can use in their texts.
Absolutely.
After they generate ideas, usually some authors about writing methodology, they have generating ideas and planning together, right? So you need a phase of planning after you generate the ideas, so that students know how they're going to organize the ideas they generated in the brainstorming phase,
Mm-hmm.
and then they write a draft. I love peer checking. Peer checking works wonders if you take it step by step.
Yes.
So
And
create
and you
a
should have
checklist.
like give the students some sort of checklist to, so
Yeah.
that it helps them give each other feedback,
Mhm.
because they're
Yeah.
very like they're not confrontational, so they avoid
Oh yes.
giving people
Mhm.
feedback that they consider um rude,
Mhm.
so it's
Yeah.
difficult for them, right?
Yeah, and it's learner training, right? You're going
Yes.
to
Mm-hmm.
have them give each other peer feedback through in a very objective way at first, using the checklist, and then when they're used to it, you can maybe use the checklist and a more subjective feedback as well, and more subjective feedback as well. Sorry, right?
Yes.
So revising, and then students give each other feedback. They revise their text, they edit, they draft again, they revise again, edit, draft, till the point that they think that the text is ready. And then they publish. I think what is worth stressing here is that writing as a life skill is not linear. We don't sit down, write, publish, right? So
No, not
whenever
at
I
all.
write blog posts, I send them to my wife, who's an English teacher. I send them to Walter. I send them to a group of friends that I have on WhatsApp, so that people can give me feedback, and then I edit, and then I send them the text again, and then I edit again to the point that I think, okay, this is good.
Absolutely.
We can do.
Yeah,
We can
like
do it.
we felt that in our skin lately, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes, like a Delta is giving us like a hard time with that because there's just so much writing, right, Bruno? And
There is.
but it's fun,
So, yeah.
and you learn a lot through that. Yeah.
You do. So wrapping up, thank you for coming to this lesson. Like, subscribe, and, do come in the next lesson, like and subscribe here somewhere. And thank you for being an amazing audience. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Don't forget to leave us that comment. We really want to know what you do in your writing lessons, right?
Oh, yes.
We asked some questions throughout the video. If you can answer those, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Right.